My name is Diane T. Sands, and today we're going to look at my project that was on mapping insect herbivory in the Amazon rainforest of the Napo River Basin in Peru. The data from this study comes from research that was collected by Dr. Meg Laumann, also known as Canopy Meg, one of the founders of the Tree Foundation. It was gathered at the Amazon Conservatory for Tropical Studies in the Napo River Basin of Peru. The Amazon Conservatory for Tropical Studies is also known as ACTS, and it contains one of the longest canopy walkway systems in the world, extending horizontally 500 meters through the treetops and reaching a maximum height of nearly 35 meters, which is about 125 feet for those of you who can't do the math in your head. This satellite image there on the right shows us where the platforms are clustered and their distance from the Napo River itself. So the objective of this study was to chart the average insect herbivory of different tree species at different heights in the subsection of the Amazon rainforest through statistical usage of geographic information technology. So this is a copy of the data sheet that is given to citizen scientists who travel with Meg Laumann to the canopy and travel along this walkway to gather specimens. Then they take the specimens, they measure their length, the width, the area, and how much of the leaf is actually there versus how much was eaten, and do the math to get the average percent herbivory. To map the walkway and where it is in relation to other things in the Amazon, I did need to lean on various scientists who contributed to my collection of geolocations for the specific platforms. The platforms are the part in the tree built around the trees which anchor the walkways. And I was able to get 5 of those definitively down to multiple decimals, so we know that they're set. The platforms are the large dots in this slide, and most of the teeny tiny writing are specific species of trees within the forest, so I was able to use that to get the exact latitude, longitude, elevation for each species, the mean herbivory, and where they are located along the walkway. So now, and then this is where those trees actually were along the walkway, and we'll get into that again in a minute. So now we're going to take a moment to look at some of the results of this study. First off, we've got a lovely scatter point plot, which is showing us the average elevation of the walkway. The FID is the number of the platform of the tree. And as you can see, like in number 10, that's not actually the platform, that's someone collecting along the ground. This is the same information in a different format. Each of the trees are labeled with a colored dot. The darker the blue dot, the higher the elevation in meters. The lighter the dot, the whiter the dot, the lower in the canopy it is. And there were a number of people who took their samples from the ground. That's in an average of 2 meters off the surface of the ground. That's where people's hands usually are. Everything else was taken along the walkway. The elevation itself mimics the height of the walkway, as you would expect. This is the same map, but showing the percentage herbivory of the samples taken. Most of the trees had between 15 and 30 leaves sampled, and their measurements taken. The larger the red dot, the higher the percentage of herbivory, and that's average herbivory. I think the highest overall was 24%, and the lowest was practically 0, and those are the teeny tiny red dots, and those roughly correspond, the tiniest dots, to samples that were done along the ground, which shows that having the canopy is useful the walkway in the canopy so that you can get a better sense of what's being eaten above the surface of the ground. Here we have a graph showing herbivory by elevation. On the right-hand side, you have the genus names of the trees, and they're color-coded. The elevation in meters is along the bottom of this graph, and the percentage of herbivory for the samples taken is on the left-hand side. There is a cluster of points between 10 and 35 feet, and that's the space along the walkway. And that's really why the study was done up in the canopy, was to show that percentage of herbivory and how it is often higher above the ground. This is the same information in a different format. The red bars are the elevation, and the corresponding blue bars are the percent herbivory for the samples taken. So what are we going to do with this information? What are the future directions to be taken with the information that we now have? The overall result shows that collecting along the walkway shows more herbivory in the samples across the majority of the species where leaves were sampled. That justifies doing these studies along the walkways so that you see what is in the upper canopy and how it differs from the ground. I think it would be very interesting to sample one tree species at different heights in order to locate the elevation of maximum herbivory for that species, which would then allow you the exact height to place insect traps so that you could figure out which insect is causing the most herbivory in the rainforest, see if that overlaps with other trees. The 16 species in this study are only half of 1% of the 700 woody plant species in the Amazon. And it would be interesting, it would be really fun to sample each of the tree species, find that elevation of maximum herbivory, and then be able to extrapolate out to the entire Amazon. How much was being eaten by insects? This would lead to really good forest management, because you would know maybe where to trim if insects were eating at a particular level. Trim those branches so that the rest of the tree can live. You could do that extrapolation through either assuming that there's a constant distribution of species, that it's, you know, everybody is evenly distributed across the Amazon, or you could do it through natural neighbor or stochastic methods. One of the things that I did not have was the actual elevation of the ground underneath the walkway. And it would be interesting to add that to the heights of the trees and the walkway to see if there are different insects at a higher, you know, at different levels. The same thing if you are that far above the ground, you know, through ropes and pulleys, do you have the same insects at that level in the canopy, even if you don't have the walkway itself? Are there any questions?